get the hearing Sturgis?
Yes.
Well, they're not easy to follow either.
Thanks, Jordan. We're live, Mayor.
Well, it is 6:30, so I call to order this regular meeting of the Sturgis Common Council on a Tuesday, 2nd of January, 2024. First item's approval of the agenda. Got a first by Becca,
Second.
got a second by Angela. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Please stand, remove cover, and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item 4 is other matters that come before the council. An opportunity in the meeting for discussion on non-agenda items brought up by the council or by the public. Does the public have anything for other matters before the council? Brittany, I'll have you come up and speak in the microphone, please.
Bernie Ucera. What I am referring to is the December 18th meeting where you, on the consent calendar, went ahead with the lease with Mead 41-1 School District. And I'm just asking for some clarification on that. So consideration of the lease with Mead 46-1 from the December 18th meeting, you approved a lease with the Mead School District for joint use and cost sharing for Whittle Field. The city owns the property,
Correct.
okay? And they lease it from us?
The football field part of it and the stands and the areas used for track and field. The joint use with the city is basically we have the parking lot and the track to the east and things like that.
Okay. So, why was this brought forward? This whole,
The existing lease expired in the end of the year.
okay. I'm asking questions since I didn't get any clarification from it that evening when it was brought up. I understand the joint use but I also want to know, does this open up the fact that maybe during the rally, they would want to hold concerts at Whittle Field?
I don't believe the school district could be interested in using Whittle Field for anything other than its primary use. We've had meetings with them and talked about future plans with the property. I don't want to speak for them, Bernie, but never has it been brought up or a desire that they said for future use at all. They've invested a lot of money into the
Right.
into the school activities portion, both on the track and in the field, and looking to do more possibly in the future. So,
Okay, I just wanted that clarification out there because I would hate to see that happen. So that's it for this time, okay?
thanks, Bernie. You
Thank
bet.
you.
Yep. Any other matters before the council? Come on up, Richelle.
Good evening, guys. I am stage name. Richelle Bruc tonight. I don't know who I'll be later. I am just here. As I said, my name is Richelle Bruc, and I'm here tonight, the first council meeting of 2024, not to ridicule the council of the decision made over the last years, but to ask the council that going into 2024, that we keep in mind community first when making decisions. You see, I went back through council meeting agendas over the last year and then noticed an alarming fact. In the last year's worth of city council meetings, one major project was brought forth to the council that would, with some differences of opinions, have been an action that showed the community that the council thought of them for once. That project was the Adventure Lake. For the reasons of the council, that project was halted. Now, here is the part that I should ask, where the funds donated by hardworking people in this community ended up for that project, but I won't go back down that road. As we are in a new year with renewed hope for our council to think of community and its members first. In 29 meetings, this does include work sessions and special meetings. Not one project for the betterment of the community was presented other than the failed lake project. And in that, only 4 of the 29 meetings contained an agenda item regarding the lake project. One meeting did mention a Moose Drive bike path grant, and I did miss the status update on that. Other than day-to-day activities, there has not been one major project that would invoke the words community or quality of life. This is where I remind our council that the city of Sturgis is not just a business. It's a public entity, and it should not be ran like a business within itself. We have to keep in mind of our community members. We have to remind ourselves that it is known for towns and cities to do quality of life projects with no immediate direct return on investment, except for the mental health and the happiness of the community members. The investment, these types of projects, is to better the town, to encourage new people to move to Sturgis. We have time and time again tried to bolster our business district on our main streets, and time again we have failed. This is not because we, the business owners, do not have the support of the people that live in this town. This is because time and time again we have chosen the rally over ourselves. We ask ourselves over and over again, why do we not have the foot traffic downtown year-round? I ask you, what do we expect of our community members to do while downtown in February? With storefronts closed during the off-season and no reason for them to be open, we continue to fight a losing battle because we continue to try and bolster rally events instead of community numbers. I have been told time and time again we cannot dictate what the business owners in our community, in our business district does. And so many that have told me this are correct. What we cannot dictate what they do, but what we can do is, what we can control is giving the businesses a reason to stay open for more than just the rally. We have a chance to create encouragement for the business owners to prove we are more than just the rally. I will continue to encourage the growth in our youth sports because it's near and dear to my heart, but also because as Sturgis soccer president, I get told time and time again that our tournaments held in 2023 brought in rally numbers for local businesses. We held 3 tournaments in off-season times. We were able to provide a significant bump to the local economy each time. With all 3 tournaments, we had to turn away teams due to lack of space. We are not alone with the need of space, adequate fields, and more. The baseball fields are still waiting on lights. The softball fields are not regulatory size. Indoor space for basketball, wrestling, indoor soccer, and more are slim at best. I would encourage the council in 2024 to make an impact and commit to fulfilling the needs of our youth sports. Could you imagine what our local economy could be if we just tried to fill one of the needs this year? The local youth sports is the youth sports industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Let us not miss the boat on this one. And I know not everyone has a youth in sports, so let's switch gears and talk about our skate park that has not been updated since the beginning. Let's talk about a water function for the kids to spend their summer days away at living their best lives. Let's talk about an after-school program offered through the community center where the theater can be used with theater classes and band practices. The mead room that could be used for art classes. These are all things that can be done and, in my opinion, should be offered to our community. So as we move forward and put 2023 behind us, I encourage the council that in 2024 be the year of the community. Let us all work together, be open and honest, and continue to create a community where we can all be proud. Thank you.
Any other public, other matters?
Good evening. Want my name first, Paul Smith. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. As I said, my name is Paul Smith. For those of you up here who I do not know, I'm a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. I'm one of our SBHS soccer coaches, the vice president of Sturgis Soccer, and a coach to over 100 youth, and the father to 6 amazing kids in this community. Before joining the Navy, I was a student here at SBHS. I grew up here in Sturgis. After my retirement from the Navy, this is where my wife, Jennifer, and I wanted to come home to raise our families. If you've ever served in the military, if you've been in long enough, you have a phrase, and it's not about me. It's about the people behind you. For us here in this room, for adults who have children, it's our youth, and that's why I'm here today. I'm here to talk about the people behind us. When we came back to Sturgis, we have some amazing programs that draw people to our community, but we simply don't do enough. We don't. Much like my friend Richelle just stated, I've looked at these staggering stats that she's provided here this evening, and we as a community, a council, leaders, we miss the mark a little bit. We do. Youth sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry. In our town, we have many great organizations, but we don't have space. We don't have a lot of it. Our organizations turn to our high school leaders to beg for gym use or outdoor field space, instead of turning here to where it all starts. Specifically in my organization, as Richelle has mentioned, we bring thousands of people to this town every year. We are trying our best to upgrade our spaces. Through the help with Rick Bush, we've been offered multiple spaces within the city, but they fall short. They fall short of upgrades. They fall short of safe playing spaces. We've tried over this past year to build and to start a fund to turf our fields. And it's not just the last year, it's been multiple years. It started with multiple presidents that we have sitting in the back. We've worked with this council to get to that point, but our partnership in finishing that kind of fell a little bit short and looking to provide a safer option. So Mayor, council members, I'm here to ask you all, please, during 2024, take a look at our youth programs. Start a committee to look at the youth organizations and see if a small complex indoor facility or an add-on to the community center is feasible. Please make an effort to ask our big city supporters if investing in our youth would be a worthy cause for them. To some of those people, it could even help increase their sales and business down the road later in life. We as a city need to adjust with the times. The Key City is a vital asset in the Hills. We can become a leader in investing in our youth and the youth of the Hills. We must add quality of life components to our city to attract people. Something other than soccer for every sport, basketball, whatever. We need to become more than just a motorcycle bike rider haven. We must prepare now for our city's future and become something more than a once-in-a-year meeting spot. We don't have to send our youth to the east and west of us. We should be bringing those family and those people here to enjoy what we have. Lastly, I'd like to end with a big thank you to Mr. Rick Bush, to Mr. Cody King. These two men and their staff have done everything they can to accommodate my organization in Sturgis Soccer and the people of this city, and they should be lauded for that. So I thank you for your time this evening. And if there's anything that I can do to help further this in 2024 in this request, I'm here to serve my city and you guys in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to add that I think the mayor and I, as children, 1980, 1981, we were on the first teams of soccer here in Sturgis that was coached by Greg Owens, our father, and Art Dackness. Yeah. So youth soccer in Sturgis has been something that we've been involved with since we were young children. And so I want to thank both of our citizens coming forward tonight to share their thoughts and opinions. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, I would also just like to thank you guys coming up in front of leading this modest crowd is never easy, and having the composure and the professionalism that you did was great, and I thank you guys for your time.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. Hey, just to comment on that too is that, I think another opportunity there to really kind of shape what that vision looks like is as we start looking at our strategic goals and vision for our community, particularly when we start doing our comprehensive plan, is a good opportunity for to kind of shape that. And as Richelle, as you kind of point out, there's a lot of different interest in our community and a lot of different opportunities to diversify away from the Raleigh to be able to have those kind of community-based endeavors. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity for us. As we go through 2024, I can tell you from the infrastructure perspective, and that's the committee I've been on part of for the last 2.5 years, there are some challenges there also. And so at the end of the day, I think it's trying to find a mix of taking care of the current infrastructure that we have and having a vision for our community that includes the Raleigh, but also kind of, doubles down on those community endeavors. And again, I think when it comes down to 2024, we've already kind of got that budget in place. Doesn't mean that we can't continue to, and I think you kind of said this, Richelle, maybe the other gentleman, about it's about start thinking about it. It's about having a plan and kind of figuring out what that future looks like. And, using what limited resources we have, to be able to find those economies that really allows us to kind of spread that wealth across the community. So again, we are going to be doing that process, just a matter of when, but it's soon. And I would encourage everybody in our community to be a voice and shape that future. Thanks.
And just to add on, Aaron, I think part of that is, existing city properties and what the future use and what the best use is for the community, not just highest return retail, but what is able to come back for quality of life and for youth sports and things like that. And so during that comprehensive plan process, it's important that we dive into what properties that are truly, sitting there, that we can make a much better situation for all. So just adding to what you said, for sure. Other matters from the community, yep.
Do any of you know how bad but awesome day begins in the restaurant business in Sturgis? It is one of the 3 Saturday mornings of the Sturgis Youth Soccer Tournament. My staff is busy doing their opening shift duties and notice there's a line of customers at our front door at 10:45 a.m. We open at 11. In a frantic, we forgot to schedule additional staff to accommodate all of our customers that visit us during each of these 3 Sturgis soccer tournaments. After some quick phone calls to get more staff in ASAP, we open the doors and pretty much fill our room within 15 minutes with 2 servers. Thank goodness they're very patient until we can get them service. We now get the dates ahead of time for these soccer tournaments so we can try to staff to accommodate all of our guests that visit us that weekend. I have been told that they average between 60 and 80 teams and 3,000 spectators show up to each of these 3 tournaments. Teams from Western South Dakota, Wyoming, North Dakota travel to Sturgis for these 3 awesome tournaments. Just these 3 tournaments bring in thousands and thousands of dollars to our small community and our business alone. With several of these guests visiting for the first time, I would say that these 3 weekends of these tournaments are some of the busiest weekends that we have, except for some of our very busiest tourist seasons. Tournaments like these are a big financial boost for a small business like us in Sturgis in the off months when they can really use a boost. Thank you for all the parents, coaches, and volunteers involved in the Sturgis Youth Soccer League. And I've asked that he leave his name out. But that was an email that he thought you should know. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Any other matters from the public? Come on up, Bonnie.
Bonnie Alberts without a cue card. I've been thinking for 2 weeks about whether or not to say this. Mike, sometimes you and I are in sync. Sometimes you and I are not in sync. And at the last meeting, I did not express a counter comment I needed time to think about it. But I want to say that I know the meeting was long last time. I know that there were tensions in the meeting. But I was really pleased and impressed with the council and its ability to actually carry on a give and take conversation, an exploration of positions and the why-fors and the wonderings. And Mike, your statement was that you felt like we had wasted an hour of time and 18 employees' time. And I don't think any time that you were working together to, in fact, knead that bread and come to an understanding of where each of you is coming from on an issue that's delicate. It is not wasted time. And sometimes it's long, sometimes it's tedious, sometimes it's stressful. But I thought it was enlightening, and I thought it was impressive that you folks were able to have those conversations, ask and answer those questions without animosity, without temperament, but just to honestly open up and ask and wonder and be able to do that. So my counterstatement is that I have to praise you for that hour. And I appreciate what it took for you to do that.
Thanks, Bonnie. Anything else for other matters? I had one for council. Just wanted to keep it on the forethought of keep it on the front of your mind. We had the work study session, something that we should continue if it's so desired by the council, but I think an opportunity to, I'll use Bonnie's word, to knead the bread on items that still are in the process that the council is considering and still trying to work through. An opportunity when it's all of us together versus just in the committee form. As I say that, it makes me think, did Preston call in? He said he wanted to call in, or if we could call him. He is COVID positive, so that's why he's not present tonight. So we can try to get him called in on that phone here while we're doing other things. So, Kevin, you got something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. For the meeting since September, we've been discussing many items associated with surplus properties and disposal of and those sort of things. We had a very lengthy discussion at the 18th of December meeting, and in the process, I was challenged to bring forward written questions that were unanswered on this. So what I've done is I've created a list of questions that I have feel have not been answered, and I expect to continue discussion, possibly as soon as the next city council meeting, on these unanswered items and how they apply to state law, city policies, and general city operations. That was what was asked of me, and this is what I'm doing with it.
Anything else from council for other matters?
You would like a copy, Bonnie? Bernie? I have copies.
Kevin, you're going to get a red marks from Bonnie.
Anything else for other matters? Informational reports is next. Oh, okay. Jeff, we'll have you come forward, sir. And during this informational report is done by one of our auditors from our outside accountant that is then sent to the legislative audit. And before I misspeak, Jeff, I'll just turn it over to you, sir. So You are on.
My name's Jeff. I am a partner with Cato Thorstensen out of Rapid City. I'm the partner in charge of the City of Sturgis audit. Been working with Faye and her team for nearly 12 years, and I was asked today to come and answer some questions regarding the audited financial statements, primarily presentation, maybe some budgetary questions, and the schedule of rally activities that we present. So I guess I'll just open the floor for questions so I make sure to address them correctly.
I think it would be fair to say that previous discussions, Jeff, have at city council meetings has been the fact that when it comes down to the end on the audit, it's both rally department and sponsorship department combined as the numbers that are sent to the state. Could you define that process to some degree and
Sure.
clear some of that up for us?
So the rally and sponsorship is part of the recreation activities of the city, correct? So from a generally accepted accounting principles perspective, we group those into the recreation and culture line items primarily. Budgetary purposes, obviously the city wants to budget separately for the rally and revenues and corresponding expenditures, makes total sense. From an accounting and auditing perspective, you wouldn't want to go into that level of detail on your financial statements. It would make them incredibly long and cumbersome, time-consuming and expensive. So, but yes, you are correct. The rally and the sponsorships is grouped into a recreation and culture line item for presentation. Does that answer the question?
It does, but I guess further speaking, as departments, those are scrutinized and analyzed by.
As part of the audit?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, let me find my notes. So. Recreation. So when we audit, every dollar in an audit is subject to us looking at it, correct? So we use sampling methods, we use some professional judgment, we use other techniques, variance analysis to pinpoint, where are my risky areas and where are my big dollars. So yes, the rally is obviously part of those big dollars. So we do key into those expenses and those revenues, yes.
So Jeff, per your statement, you're saying that the city budgets for those separately, but you account for them through your auditing process commingled when it comes to recreation expenses.
Question or statement?
I'm asking the question. I mean, that's clearly how you are seeing the city's actions, where our budget has those split, but your audit combines those.
Yes, the audit would present those in lines commingled with other activities. They may have their own general ledger accounts, so they may be split out on the general ledger and the accounting system. But the city has how many general ledger accounts? 15, 20,000? So yeah, we do have to combine some of those accounts to put together a usable report.
But there's no reason that internally the city can't do whatever they want with budgetary type reporting.
If the city wants to present internal financial statements on a budgetary basis that breaks out the rally, they certainly could.
Part of the questions that came tonight were generated by me, and basically I'm a little bit embarrassed that on the third year as a city councilor, I had never noticed the unaudited rally comments in the budget. So when I saw that it was on the agenda, I did a little bit of research, and on page 68 of the 2022 annual report, we list sales tax numbers under unaudited rally as part of our revenue, and of course our general government items. But part of it is hard to really understand then, because I continued to this Department of Revenue's webpage where all cities in the state of South Dakota, sales tax data is available. And the 2022 report says $741,000. So basically, it looks to me like we're counting all of the sales tax data for July and August against the rally. All of our sales tax data in Sturgis for July and August. And so it's concerning to me when the title of that page says unaudited, Jeff. So how do we add the notes? Because there's 12, 15 pages of audit notes.
At least, yes.
Yeah, but nowhere does it say anything about the unaudited rally pieces and how those are not audited or brought together. How items that are, for example, in kind and whatnot are accounted for and whatnot through our rally accounting process. Additionally,
Can I respond to that?
Yes,
before we
sir.
move on? Is that okay?
yes,
Okay. So from an audit perspective, from a financial statement perspective, on page 68, the schedule of rally activities is presented unaudited. To your point, there's $741,000 of sales tax that says is being allocated to the rally. And that's exactly the reason that this statement is labeled unaudited. I can't tell you with reasonable assurance how much sales tax the rally generated, because how much would have been there if the rally didn't exist? Who knows, right? You don't know what the delta is. You don't know what the increase or the increment is in sales tax because of the rally. So I can't tell you that number is reasonably materially correct because I don't know. It's not a number that anyone knows. Likewise with some of the general government revenues and also some of the special sanitation, some of the other expenses. There are items that are direct charge to the rally. Those items wouldn't exist if the rally didn't exist. You can pinpoint those, right? But there's other items that you can't. You think of overtime, you think of insurance, you think of, what have you. You think of all those allocated items. You don't know what those are. I can't put an audit opinion on something like that. And that's why that's labeled unaudited. So the former city manager has a spreadsheet. He has a pretty elaborate process to go through this, but it's not perfect, right? And I don't think it needs to be, but coming up with a number to really pin down and say that rally generated $741,177 of sales tax revenue, and for me to tell you that number is correct, it's impossible. So this schedule is in here. It's not a required schedule. No one tells you that this has to be in here. It was legacy probably before my time that it was added. But it goes in there to give people an idea of what the economic impact of the rally is on management's best guess.
well, thank you for the clarification on that. I mean,
Hey, Kevin, clarification on, did you say in the 741,000 and all of that was credited towards the rally?
well, it shows on the report, page 68, 741,000 under sales tax.
Right.
Which the July and August sales tax reports taken from the Department of Revenue website show not exact, they don't balance to that, but they're pretty close.
But they credit all that sales tax to the rally.
Right.
Is that what I heard you say?
Right, which for me is troubling in that
Well, I would agree because you
no
just
rally
made
is in July.
So
right.
I
And you
think
just made the statement that there's no way you can really find out exactly what that number is. But I think it's a fallacy to assume that all of it is towards the rally.
I would agree, and that's why this is labeled unaudited. I don't audit these numbers. I take them from the city manager or from management, and I put them in the report, and it's labeled unaudited. This is their representation.
Faye, during the process, though, specifically in August, there is some definition that the city can at least keep track of where the temporaries pay before the final numbers come in from the permanents. Is that a fair statement to say that during the rally, the temporary vendors usually pay during that time frame, yet it takes a little bit longer for the Department of Revenue to return the check and the numbers on the permanent businesses? Is that a fair statement, I guess?
Yes, the temporary sales tax comes in on a different check than the actually the businesses that are in the city. But we still cannot, we don't know exactly what that is. But yes, that's why we have to wait so late, because we're always a month behind, and so another month behind. So that's why we wait until October, I believe it is, for the last one. So.
But I want to back up all the way just for clarity purposes. We do know that number as a cumulative number. What we don't know is the split amongst what is caused by the influx of visitors because of the rally and what is just regular business. That's the unknown, is how it is split.
Well, it also is tough that Department of Revenue only reports monthly. You know, we're not able to be more granular to break it down to, you know, a week or a day. But it definitely seems like we're leaving ourselves open in our budgeting process, because we have, for lack of a better term, blind faith that we have to go through to manage this and plug these numbers into our rally profit and loss pieces.
There's some tools you could use. I mean, obviously you could look at what a standard month is on average. You could chart that out for multiple years of data and then figure out, okay, what's my average delta, what's my average increment, you know, high rally years, low rally years, what am I going to be expecting? That could certainly be a tool that you use, but you know, like I mentioned, and I think everyone understands, to actually pin down what that sales tax revenue is going to be is impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's an art versus a science, absolutely.
Yeah, this is definitely on the art side.
Absolutely. Because of all the accounting and the rally, it's just kind of hard to determine what that real impact is compared to all the other tourism activities that are going on during the year. But I guess when we make the assumption that it's 100% towards the rally, we know that's not right also. So I think we need to come up with a little better art here on trying to determine what that real impact is to the best that we can versus just making the assumption.
And I think the problem too, if you were just looking at July and August actuals, they're always they would be behind too, because I mean, wouldn't they? I mean, if you looked at the actual for the revenue from Department of Revenue, with that July and August, it should be actual though, shouldn't it?
It depends on which report you look at. If you're looking at the, you know, sales tax in July but not received till August or whatever, it's a timing deal at that point. But
well, these are 2022 recap reports, so
okay,
we shouldn't be waiting for anything over a year.
But that July, if they're saying this is July money, but I didn't receive it till August, and then August I didn't receive it till September. So you see, we're on a different time frame too, as far as looking at it.
That's a valid point.
So Councilman Forrester, there is detail behind the 741. I don't have it in front of me. I don't have it with me. If you need that, I know Faye has it, and you could then see where that number came from.
Well, I don't think tonight what the intent was to go through an audit.
Yeah,
process.
I understand.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm just if you're curious on where it came from and how the detail was arrived at, it's available.
I think, for me anyway, you know, the goal tonight would be to try and better understand the auditing process, make sure that we have notes that directly give anyone that reads this going forward the same level of detail that all the other notes provide when it comes to this rally stuff, even if it says we've got an art, not a science here. But I think there's also a challenge to the council to ask if commingling of funds is good enough. I know for me it isn't.
I don't know that I would use the word commingling, because the rally funds have their own general ledger accounts. They are tracked separately. They're pooled on the financial statement for presentation.
Well, I can dig into all of our fourth quarter, you know, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter reports, all of our reporting that we historically do, and we roll those together. We do not, even in our budgeting process, we're not provided. I mean, we look at all the history that's on our webpage. City Council's not provided what was actually spent the previous year and years to use to weigh against the current budget ask. And, so some of this involves you and your work, but some of it from your description is definitely the discretion of the leadership of the city, the elected city council.
Correct. Most of this would be outside the scope of the service I provide.
What is the pro and con to this?
Cost benefit analysis. I mean,
What do we take away from the analysis?
well,
Is it smoke or is it mirrors?
some of both, right?
Well, then how does it affect our future financial perspective?
I'm unclear on what you're trying to ask me.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. We can spend hours and hours and hours trying to pinpoint these projections. Is it gonna make any difference when we're done? Or is it smoke or is it mirrors? Because,
I don't have the crystal ball either,
well,
so
then what, Faye, how do you fix it? Adam? It's been done like this for how many years? We're going on 70, I would imagine, for sales tax now. I don't know how much time and effort we put into something that is a ghost. You're not gonna be able to get those sales tax figures to that level of detail when you get them a month late from the Department of Revenue. So, to continue this type of conversation, I put no faith in it. If you can't audit them, how much work do they put in?
So I think there's two questions at hand in what I'm hearing, and one is, do you want to separately track specific expenditures and revenues of the rally so you have better optics on them, for one, and that's just a function of the general ledger accounting, and I can't tell you how much more work that is. I'm not here day to day, so.
Can you tell me with a reasonable degree how much more labor?
No.
Can you imagine what type of auditing would have to go on to get those figures?
No, I don't have an idea of that.
I don't think
Impossible.
Department of Revenue would even come close to touching it.
I'm not even talking sales tax now. I'm talking specifically identified revenues and expenditures. But
Yeah, definitely, Mike. We're not talking revenue, we're on to expenditures. And the fact that we have line items for sponsorship and rally and community center and all of these things. And, now, for the first time, I've learned that those are audited together. And, I believe that those need to be tracked. And once again, I don't see how it could be any more time, Mike. Our financial system, Faye, correct me if I'm wrong, has those items listed.
let me give you a comparison. Maybe this will help. I audit payroll, let's say, in 6 different funds, but I do it all at one time. So I test 25, sometimes 50 payroll transactions. It's across multiple funds, but I do it all at one time. Those individual transactions are tested. I know where they show up in the financial statements, and I have a good feeling that they're correct. But I do it one time. It's the same thing with the rally sponsorships and the rally revenues and expenditures. I test them and I commingle them with other testing, and I present them maybe commingled, but that doesn't mean they're not there, and that doesn't mean I haven't tested them. So what I'm hearing is maybe not quite a complete understanding of how the numbers get from Cassell, the accounting system, into the audited financial statements, and I'd be more than willing to go through that with you offline sometime.
Or maybe another way to put it is reporting that does not allow for the uncommingled account summaries.
Not sure I follow.
From the financial system.
Not sure I follow, but.
Well, running the reports with different parameters from the financial side, not from your auditing side. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. you know, you're not going to spend the time, and at $200 an hour, I'm concerned even with your time here tonight. And maybe it's more than that. But the fact is that it looks like it's the council's budget to manage, and we can request that subdivision, even though that you go through the auditing process and bring those together. The business that you audited that had 6 different payroll funds, they darn sure are tracking those 6 different payroll funds. They're
That
not
was,
ro- they're
that
not-
was your city. That wasn't just a,
Okay.
that was
Well,
here.
Anyway, the clarification is that some items are statistics that, you know, we can't manage. And, you know, statistics don't lie, but we don't necessarily trust how we're able to bring those in. And that we have the opportunity to do a better job of being accountable to the line item through our own reporting side and through our own financial discussions. You know, Mike, I'm looking right now at our just finished budget in 23, and you know, nowhere in this budget book that is published on our webpage does it say what we actually spent in 21 or 22. And I'm sure when we get to the, you know, get to the next piece, we won't have what was spent in 23. We just have the budgeted amount. So we don't capture supplements, and more concerning, the commingled piece, because we approve the budget expenditures by subline item, not commingled. We had a lengthy discussion last meeting. Mike, you didn't think that it was productive. I did. That we were taking monies out of our rallying events and landing it in sponsorship, even though we had approved those separately, even though the budget book that's published shows those separately. But because you audit them together, that's how they were presenting them, with the idea that we did not need to further define those divisions within those commingled accounts.
I don't know if I'm on the hot seat right now. I kind of feel like I am.
Yeah,
I didn't
no, you're
didn't
not.
think I was gonna be.
Yeah.
But don't let the audit drive what you as council need to do. I mean, that's not the answer. Don't let the audit wag the tail of the dog here, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Do what's best for the city. We'll figure out how to audit it, right?
Thank you. That's the most profound thing I heard today.
Glad I could be insightful.
Well, I think, you know, the key thing from my perspective is, you know, transparency and clarity. And even though we've been doing a certain process and how we've managed those finances for 10 years, doesn't mean we can't do it better and we can have more clarity. And I think that's kind of where Councilor Forrester is coming in, is that sometimes it's confusing. And why is it confusing? And sometimes you could think, well, if it's confusing because they're trying to hide something. I don't think that's the intent, is to hide something. That's why our opportunity here is to have a lot more clarity, and I think that answers that question, Mike, in terms of, you know, what this conversation is about. You know, in my last profession, we used to get audited. We never did all that well in the Department of Defense, but yet we still probably had good budgeting process in some sense. So there, I think those, you know, in terms of what we do from a council in managing our budget and providing oversight and ensuring that funds are spent on those activities as we appropriated, is much different than the accounting on terms of from the audit perspective. And that's the opportunity as we go forward, is to be able to have that better oversight and to ensure that if we are going to be doing a supplement on something, that comes back to the council, because they are not joint activities. Use an example, sponsorship and the rally. We appropriate funds into those activities during the budget process, and here's what we've budgeted for that based on what we expect that to cost. If it's a little bit over, a bit under, we just can't slide money from one activity to another. That has to come back to the council to get that kind of approval. So even if you don't get that approval, and you did it what I would think is wrong, it could still pass an audit. But again, it comes back to, I think, Jeff, what you said is very important, is that it really comes back to what, you know, our process and improving that process in terms of how we, you know, build that budget, and then more importantly, the oversight and spending of it and how we're going to allocate that. Because again, it's always a guesstimate when we put a budget together. We kind of, here's what we guess the expenses are going to be, here's what we guess the revenue is going to be. We know that's going to change, but when it changes, we need those, that comes back to the council for discussion and dialogue and to make approval, you know, get consensus on what those changes are. Not having that be an administrative services where the staff, we authorize the staff just to be able to start moving money around.
Anything else for Jeff?
I appreciate your time, Jeff.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Are we able to add those notes to the 23 audit when we get to that?
Certainly. So what I would suggest is this schedule, for the reasons I stated, will stay labeled as unaudited, correct? We can disclose anything you want on the bottom of this page if that provides some insight to those that are reading it and some help for them to understand it. So page 68, I mean, we can fill the bottom of it with any sort of disclosures that you'd like to see in there, yes. That's your financial statements, not mine.
I guess in closing, is there any reason why this council wouldn't be inclined to be more transparent and have the finance office direct the finance office to provide those information more granular when it comes to I mean, because we just heard a lot of public comment about recreation and those sorts of things and our expenditures. It seems like it's prudent to our constituents. And, you know, Mike brought up that we've been doing this for quite a while. Well, our shared constituency with the school district and the county of Meade, the county, they're doing it granular. The school, they're doing it granular. They're not breaking those things down in the same way. So is there any reason that we can't start with that immediately?
I think it's been part of what has been talked about with the process as 2024 budget moves forward, is to start specifically dialing those in and making a difference. I think part of what has to be an understanding, and we need staff's help for council on this, is there are some assumptions. I mean, I was specifically talking rally expenditures, revenues, and where they go from there into the general fund and places like that. So outside of Jeff's world, but certainly something that he would be able to make note of within the annual report and the audit, and to help differentiate for future reference as it's used as a reference document like it's intended. So I think it's going to take some work, but I think it makes sense to do so.
There's no reason that we can't report it in the fourth quarter report, is there?
Basically, burn rate on fourth quarter is what you're saying.
Burn rate, collection rate, fourth quarter report by the line item that matches the budget.
And this is one thing that I've told him, Jeff, is like I can do the fourth quarter reports, say in February, because that's pretty much when our expenses get in, the revenues get in. But the problem is those numbers will change because I make a lot of journal entries to get it to where you guys will audit it. So, and that will take throughout March, April. My financial report that goes to the state is due the first meeting in May. And so I can give you your financials for the fourth quarter, but they are not going to be complete. And like I've said, the complete numbers are the audited numbers.
No, I think
Is that a true statement, would you say, Jeff?
Yeah, there's some year-end close that happens outside of or past February, March timeframe.
I think we're talking on the margins though, aren't we, when we're talking about
Certainly.
I mean, we're not talking significant changes here.
Well, there is,
That's it. I understand it's not going to be 100% accurate because there's always those additional things that are coming in. I mean, I had the same challenge when I'm reconciling my bank account. The process, I think, is pretty much the same. But that report in February is going to be probably a 98, 99% solution of what that looks like
Where you'll
in
see,
terms of the overall.
where you'll see large differences or changes is primarily in pension. There's some nasty pension disclosures and adjustments that get made. It doesn't have any impact on cash or anything like that. It's just an accounting deal. So you'll see some changes there. Sometimes fixed assets, if we, assist in helping get, construction process trued up and stuff like that. But for the most part, or sometimes even payroll, you got to accrue some payroll back or whatever.
but there is, and I could give you guys a good number, or a close number, like what we did in 22, all the journal entries. I can give you a total of what those journal entries are, but like you're saying, capital improvements makes a big difference, because I'm moving those. We do prepaid insurance, because we start paying for our insurance in December, and so there's several journal entries that get made that it does change things. But like I said, if you could just go into it knowing that these changes are going to happen for the final report and the audit, and
Yeah,
That's understandable.
I think it's great, and I don't have a problem with quarterly, monthly, weekly posting budgetary information on our website. I pulled up what I had proposed in 2020 as the city council proposed goals, and one of my goals was city revenue placed on the city website with monthly updates as another move towards more transparency in how the city does its business. And what I recommended is using the state of South Dakota's website for the state, opensd.com, as a template. City sales tax revenue is posted on the website for the public to see, and it is updated monthly, weekly, as needed. I also had to establish a working budget group, with which Mike and we tried to do. So I think that, the fact that we're all kind of coming together to push this forward and to evolve our budgetary avenues and processes, I think it's a great thing, and it's something that has been addressed and talked about. So to see it taking these steps forward, I think it's a good thing for us to do.
and maybe we want to wait because we're not keeping Jeff around here. But I would like to get Kevin, maybe Becca, whoever else would like to sit in before I leave, and just go through the Cassell worksheets and see if so that you can read those, because those are your importance. That breaks it down for you. It shows you the budget. It shows you what we spend. It shows you what's left. So I would hate to see that you make Adam do a worksheet, Excel spreadsheet, that you want him to put those numbers in when we've already got those numbers. So I would love to sit down with you and show you these, and we can really tweak Cassell worksheets. We can add, we can subtract, we can do a lot with them. So just
Basically a customized report.
it is. It's something we can make different if we want.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have
No.
we have the tools that we spend
Correct.
big money for our financial package. So
Correct.
definitely the reports are there. Let's generate them.
What I'm
And
hoping,
I have sent some of those reports out to you guys.
what I'm hoping for is kind of how Becca just articulated it, is that we as a council, that, we know that in January, we have our financial activities are going on in January. And it's probably not until late February or sometime it's March that you get that particular, it's the next, it's 2 months later. But once we get that information, that there is oversight on that particular month. Now, that may not necessarily include all the council, maybe it does. But at minimum, I would like to see the council reviewing the quarter reports and kind of looking at what those execution rates are, getting feedback from our department heads and understanding, because when they put their budget together, they're not just looking at a number at the end of the year. They know that I'm going to spend this much in January, I expect to spend this much in February, on through the month. And so they have an understanding of what that execution rate should look like. Maybe at some point we have an understanding of what that looks like, and we can have that information ourselves. But at least we can have that dialogue with the department heads. Once we get through that first quarter, we're looking at that information and we're having that dialogue with the department heads and understand, are we on track on that activity? Is this kind of what you expected? Are you over, are you under? Doesn't mean we have to do anything about it at that point. We're just aware of it. But at some point, if that continues that trend, then at some point we know we're probably going to have a supplement there, particularly if it's under, if it's an important activity that we need to be able to continue to finance through the end of the year. But we're not doing that at the end of the year. We're doing that through the year. And we always have, not only us, but the community always has that kind of understanding and transparency of what's kind of going on when it comes down to the execution rate for that budget. Because that budget process is supposed to be completely visible to everybody. And again, going back to what you were saying, Becca, what you committed to as the council president, I think that's the direction we need to go, is to have that kind of oversight. Now the challenge is creating not extra work, but maybe doing extra work one time to be able to generate reports that come out of that system that provides all the information so we can be able to manage and oversight that better.
The implementation within the framework
Right.
that already exists and, without.
Anything else from council for Jeff? We appreciate your time and coming, and we'll get you 2023's numbers.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're off the hot seat there, Jeff.
Item 8 is announcements and praise. Go ahead. What do you got, Bonnie? Okay. We'll come to the microphone then. Your knee must be hurting again.
Bonnie Alberts. I'm watching this happen, and what I'm seeing is a microcosm within this room of what has been going on in our community and what we're working against in the community with communication and transparency. And it seems to me that, and this is my naive ignorance speaking, but sometimes clarity comes from that. Accounting is one thing, reporting is another layer, and auditing is something entirely different. And my understanding of auditing is that's a separate entity that knows how to look and find discrepancies, mistakes, intentional or unintentional. But in the absence of the kind of reporting that the council is seeking, they can't be transparent with the public. And right here, in the absence of that reporting, we have a growing mistrust of accounting. And it sounds like when Faye comes back and says, well, and I can, the system that you, carousel. See, I want it to be a carousel, and it's not. But it sounds like it has the capacities for the council to get what the council wants. It's just that you're not the users, the drivers, the knowers of that. And, in the absence of that connection, here we are in a smoky environment, not really trusting one another. And I hope that communication can come. Yes, we run into errors. We find errors and Faye fixes them. It's going to happen. They're not intentional. Nobody's doing any funny business. They're just there and need to be cleaned up. But I think what really has to happen is some clear understanding and communication about what Kevin wants to see, what the council wants to see, so they can be confident in the decisions that they make. And yes, it takes time, and it costs some money to do that. But when I do research, I design a lot of reports. I call out a lot of reports that are, I forgot to consider this or I forgot to do that, and then I have to redesign. You know, but I think once you get past that, where you get those reports delineated, it sounds to me like the information you want about the funds that are entered separately can be reviewed, reported, and looked at separately. At the auditing level, yeah, they smush them together because they can do their job with them smushed together. But I think with some understanding of the system and the capacities of the system and to really work together to design the reporting, you'll get to where you want to be and be able to make your decisions with confidence and to be able to justify your decisions publicly with confidence. And we really haven't had that kind of clarity. We haven't had that kind of understanding throughout. And I mean, do you hear what I'm saying, Faye? I mean, I see you smiling behind your hand, but
I think it's
where
important,
do you
Bonnie.
see it going?
I think it's important to understand that when Faye was talking about the journal entries being corrected, that's not because of mistakes. It's because a December bill came in
Right,
March, and it has to go in
Right.
the proper month.
right.
So I wanted that clarity on the table as we close this
Yes.
subject. It's simply because so much is going on, it has to be filed away in the right spot when it does finally get done and sent to the auditors.
And I get that part. I worked for an auditor for a while.
But with the auditors, they'll never, no matter what notes and no matter what the city provides in reporting, they'll never be able to say anything but these rally numbers are unaudited, because they can't say with confidence where things come from. So no matter how detailed we get in our reporting side of it, as it goes to the auditors and then goes to the state, it'll still remain as that note, because they can't have the capability of saying every penny where it came from and where it's going because of the reporting back from the Department of Revenue.
But unaudited doesn't mean they didn't look at it.
Correct.
Unaudited means
They can't-
certify
exactly.
it
That's the point I
because it's
wanted.
indeterminate.
Exactly.
And it's a vocabulary thing.
I guess one additional item that might be of interest or be a talking point in this, Jeff brought up a spreadsheet created by Daniel Ainsley that was used to generate these. If that was publicly provided, that would give us the roadmap for being able to decipher how these numbers were ascertained.
Right. And in the past, it was always presented as a lump sum. The actual process wasn't there. I've been working with City Hall that we're going to plan on bringing, I guess, not a true statement 100%, but profit and loss from the rally and how those assumptions were made through that spreadsheet that basically Daniel built over the years. So that will be coming forward with something in addition to these are all the numbers instead of the cumulative and the assumptions made to get those numbers, which is an important point because there are assumptions along the way, without a doubt. But in the very near future, that, Marshall, you're pretty much 99% complete on that, aren't you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The extent to which I can answer that depends upon how deep the dive is. To go to a point that Kevin brought up about...
I don't know if your microphone's on over there.
Sorry. Sales tax revenue. Mr. Ainsley had a formula by which he derived what he called a net increase in sales tax attributable to the rally based on sales tax numbers throughout the year. Beyond that, I can't tell you the details right now because I haven't dove into that. So the report is a long ways towards the end, and I can attach more exhibits to you showing historical information about how numbers were generated.
But you have a tangle, you have a knot, and I just have to commend you for being willing and able to pick at it until you get it figured out.
You know, and just to piggyback on that, Bonnie, I guess where I probably wouldn't use the term distrust in terms of you know, the tension and friction. To me, it's about process improvement. In any organization, as you try to strive for process improvement, that equals change. And we all know that change is not an easy thing to do. And in going through change, it creates tension. Sometimes it creates some friction. I think what's been heartful from my perspective is that as we've had those events happen, tension and friction, we've continued to work through those. But, you know, just listening to everybody on the council here, I think everybody seems to be committed to continued process and change, process improvement. I mean, why would you not? You know, I mean, you're never perfect, and there's always opportunities. But again, we've been operating a certain way for a long time, and so I have a lot of empathy for, you know, the people that have been working this process for a long time, and now we're starting to change that a little bit. And again, change is difficult, but it takes time for that to happen. So I wouldn't call it a matter of mistrust. It's about how do you achieve more accountability, more information, more oversight, more transparency, and sometimes if you can't articulate exactly what you're asking, then you're asking people to interpret what that is, and when they provide something, it doesn't always meet the intent, but you were never clear on your intent because you never had all that information. I think, as I've heard Kevin talk tonight about, hey, I've been here for 2.5 years, same thing for me is that, you know, my understanding today is much better than it was 6 months ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago. And with that understanding creates more questions. But you don't have, you're asking 12th grade questions, but with an 8th grade vocabulary because you haven't got that complete understanding. And it's difficult for people to really understand what you're asking for. And so right now, I think, to me, it's part of the process, give and take. It's you know, it's kind of like a shotgun effect a little bit. You're providing all these pieces here. Well, that's not quite right. And we're continuing to fine tune that. Even though we've talked about we want to have better oversight in 24, we're going to have a better budget process for 25. I guarantee you that when we get done with those processes, if we do an AAR, an after action review, there will be opportunities to improve on that. We're never going to get that perfect. It's always going to be a process to make that better. And so to me, it's more about that process improvement, which is change, which is difficult in an organization versus a distrust. I mean, we have a lot of great people that work in this community on the staff, and they are committed to the people in this town. They're committed to the city of Sturgis. It's just be able to, you know, again, how do you change and how do you going through that change sometimes takes a little bit of time.
That's good clarification and good perspective, Aaron, and that's where you and I connect because I'm 30 years a change agent. I know how hard that is, and I know how hard it is on people. And again, that's why I support you in what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and I know how hard it is, and it'll come. You're getting there, and I thank you for doing it.
Thanks, Bonnie.
In closing, could I ask a question about, Mr. Marshall, how are you the one that are doing the financial work when our finance office should be doing that work?
Well, I think I'm doing it because both rally and sponsorship report to me, and it's part of my oversight function of their roles.
And I think it's somewhat of a transition team. I mean, if there's questions, there's collaboration that's done by all members that are needed. Is that a fair statement?
That too is a fair statement, Mr. Mayor.
And the numbers came from me. I put them in the worksheet. And Eric helped with that too.
So moving on to item 8, announcement and praise. I'd like to take a moment and pray to praise our Heavenly Father. Lord, we just thank you for all of our blessings that we have. I pray that we trust you and fear you, and that you sanctify us with your word, and we can meditate on your word to help just in the process of understanding that by grace, through faith in Christ alone, is our salvation path. We appreciate all of our blessings and just pray for your forgiveness as we are broken people and know we are in need of a Savior. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. Next meeting for January, due to the holiday on Monday, is going to be 2 weeks from tonight, so we'll have another Monday on a Tuesday, the 16th of January. That's all I had for additional notes. If council has anything to add. Go ahead, Dean.
Mr. Mayor, along with one of the other themes for the evening was youth sports and activities. This weekend, on January 7th, we have our Sturgis Youth Wrestling Tournament, which will attract around 500 participants, whatever number you want to use to multiply how many attendees we have and the impact that it'll have in the community. And just very thankful for the group and support and volunteers we have in place to make an event like that happen. It's no different from here. It's bigger than one person, and we do it for the community and for the kids as well.
Thanks, Dean.
Mr. Mayor,
This weekend, right?
January 7th, Sunday.
I'd just like to give a shout out to the city staff for working through the holidays for the snow removal, trash pickup, and then definitely the recyclable center. I made a trip out there and holy moly. So a shout out to them for everything they did through the holiday season for the community. So
Was that your couch out there?
Appreciate it, Tony. Anything else?
I speak to that as well.
It was your couch.
I was over to Spearfish in the snow, and Spearfish has always done a really fine job of snow removal. Not anymore since they put in the median and the circle and everything else, and you guys just plowed circles around them. You did such a good job of getting this snow up and over and out of the way. And
Agreed.
nicely done, nicely done.
Bonnie added that, as usual, the City of Sturgis staff does a fine job of cleaning up the streets and dealing with the snow, which is much needed for our water refill in here in the spring. So,
So don't let them give us a median down the middle of the junction.
item 7 is City Manager's report by transition team. Lisa is coming forward for a long list of volunteers at the first meeting in January. So I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Yes, so on 7-1, 7-2, 7-3, 7-4, 7-5, 7-6, and 7-7, those are a listing of all the volunteers that the city relies on to perform a variety of functions. We are required to list them in the minutes for work comp coverage as well as liability purposes. The first one is just the chamber affiliated volunteers. That does give them the ability to use our vehicles. Number 2 is all the boards and commissions that the city has. Our planning commission, municipal utility board, park board, and library board of trustees. It's listing them in those capacities. All of these are non-compensated, with the exception of planning commission does receive a small stipend, but the rest of the volunteers do not. Number 3 is the community center's water aerobics classes. Number 4 are some rally and events department volunteers. Number 5 are our reserves. Number 6 are the volunteer firefighters. And new this year is they are building out their auxiliaries. So there's a listing of auxiliaries members at the bottom of 7-6. And then in 7-7, you have your animal shelter volunteers. So we just need those listed every year in the minutes. And as there are changes, like additions, we don't delete them. But once they're added, you will see them again throughout the year. For example, the reserves typically have a class that finishes up in June, July, and you'll see them come back before you, those new people. But these are your diehards that have been here for more than 1 year.
Any questions for Lisa from council?
And we are very grateful for
Yes,
all the service that
for
these folks
sure.
have provided to us.
Backbone of the community for sure. Thank you, ma'am. No action needed on that item. Brings us to item 8, consider consent agenda. 8.1 is that consideration. 8.2 is the minutes from the previous meeting. And 8.3 is the resolution necessary for salaries and wages. That if there's changes necessary to that, it does get checked frequently. It does once in a while. There is a mistake within. Lisa's coming forward.
And I do have one that Angela, Councilor Wilkerson did identify. I do have one typo that I would like to just correct. It's somebody who's paid per pay period, and it does indicate per hour on the resolution. So I'll have Faye change that in the final one that you guys do approve. So with that one typo.
Nice catch, Angela.
You know, with that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to remove 8.3 for further discussion.
So is that a motion for the approval of 8.1 and 8.2?
Yes.
Yep. So we have a first by Aaron and a second by Becca for 8.1 and 8.2 to be approved. What do you have, Bernie, for?
I want 8.3.
Yep. That's what Aaron had the motion on. Yep. Any desire to remove the consent or the minutes from the previous meeting? None being heard, and with a motion on the floor to approve minus 8.3, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That's unanimous. For a roll call, please. Brings us to 8.3. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, just going to the very of 9 of 9 on that report. When it specifically the transition team members, the composition, and all that type of stuff, I would recommend we remove that from this resolution, and have it, maybe the subcommittee that our city manager subcommittee to talk about that. I have some concerns about just maintaining the status quo. When we built the transition team, it was a temporary situation based on, hiring that city manager, which we started that process back, in May timeframe or so. Right now, I know we're waiting for the lawsuit to determine what direction we're going to be going. Not sure when that's going to happen. Not to say that things haven't worked out well for 23, but as everybody talked about, this is a new year. I do think I would like to have some discussion on this. Maybe at the end of the day, it stays the same, but I wouldn't mind having some discussion on this. We can do that tonight, or we could do that when that subcommittee that's really was the committee that recommended this initially in that terms of that composition. So unless you have any questions for me on that, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I guess you're making a motion with removal of that paragraph. Is that what you're stating? And making sure that further discussions happen to at least consider a situation at hand and where we're going in the future with the transition that is an unknown period of time.
Yeah, I would just strike that from, that motion would, to support that, everything else but that paragraph be striked for further discussion.
I'd second that.
What are the?
Go ahead.
That I guess I'm unaware of that.
You need to click on the click. There, you're right there. Now go back down to.
Yeah, go down further. The other direction. Yeah, it's on the last page of the resolution.
While we're navigating to that, I would actually bring a question around about the city manager subcommittee, because we've had to refresh that. That, as my memory serves me, that city manager committee is now done, that we're in 2024. We would have to re-up that as well.
That's not correct. Resolutions are continuing unless they state in them that they have a fixed end, and I don't have it before me, so I'm not sure that the resolution appointing the management team had an end date in it.
So bottom line is that subcommittee still authorized?
I believe it would be. I think we can meet and discuss this without a doubt on a near Thursday at hand. Aaron, for sure to answer your question. Yep. So we have first and a second on the floor with the resolution, consideration to approve resolution with striking the verbiage on the transition team. Dean had a question on what that changes. I don't have an exact answer to that. I assume.
It doesn't look like it has any financial impact
I
on the
don't
rest
think
of
so
that document.
either. Yeah, I don't believe so either. I think it's.
Again, this is not about necessarily the base salary. I know that we have a stipend above and beyond that, but this report doesn't include that anyway. It's just the base salary.
Yep.
So the removal of this paragraph doesn't remove the stipend?
No.
That's what you're saying?
Right.
Right, but it is listed in the paragraph.
So do they not?
This is the base salary, the stipend.
Lisa's gonna.
Yeah, that is correct. The salaries that are listed by the transition team members does not include that amount. However, if the paragraph is struck, then there's no stipend being paid.
Well, then we'd have to meet sometime soon to have that discussion then.
I would disagree. I say we continue as is until we have the discussions, and we can adjust it at another meeting. But there was a first and a second on the floor,
Yeah,
so.
you're correct.
I'd like to point out that from the motion made, in February of '23, there's additional names on the list that were not part of the original motion, or an additional name. So as part of the discussion as we lead into a vote on this.
So we have a first and a second on the floor to strike the paragraph, which would basically suspend the stipend to the transition team until further discussion. Any other discussion?
You know, just a comment here is that I don't remember, was that a council decision to even have a stipend? Did we approve a stipend? Was that a council? And what action was that? I wasn't really part of this process last year because obviously we still had the city manager in place. So it's not clear to me that why the stipend would end if we didn't include it, if it wasn't even on this resolution.
Right, the first time.
What would authorize the stipend in the first place?
Right, because the resolution from January 23 didn't have it.
No, and then we must add something that provided that.
There was further.
I don't remember anything on, I don't remember that, but was there something on there that says that it had to be on this document for that to continue?
Yeah, any compensation that is provided to staff with regards to like base pay is required to be notated in the minutes. So because this is an addition to base pay, then you have to notate it in the minutes.
How did we provide the stipend back in April, May timeframe?
I think it was part of the resolution that was done, or we did a salary change that was notated in the minutes as part of that back in April, and then another one was done in June.
Pardon me? No, part of that. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that the stipend's listed.
I believe that was done in April.
May.
This is from February 21st meeting.
Yeah, it was done right around the time that the transition happened, is when it was just notated in the minutes to change, and then another change was made in June, adding the mayor.
Well, then maybe, okay, we could have another discussion point. I guess we'll have to vote on this. We have first and second, but, you know, the intent was not to pull away the stipend until we made a decision on the composition of the management team.
Yeah.
So maybe this resolution would continue the stipend for that management team, but it's contingent on, you know, maybe it's good for the next, you know, January until we confirm with the subcommittee and come back and make a recommendation to the council on what that composition is going to look like. And I guess tie it back to the stipends.
That seems reasonable, or Councilor Jordan, because, I mean, our finance officer is actually going to be retiring at the end of January. Am I correct with that? February 15th, oh. So you got a few extra meetings.
So we have a first and a second to strike it. Was there discussion there in that to reconsider it all with that motion, or call the question? You made the first, so you have that.
Well, then
right.
I would change my motion to strike that paragraph, but continue the stipend for the month of January until we confirm
With the
or maybe let's say meet that the middle of February. So we can actually meet with this on the subcommittee and then bring it back to the council for a final decision at council.
So we have a first for a reconsideration of the motion by Councilor Aaron
I would
Jordan. It's an amendment. Yeah, that'd be fair for the amendment. Would you second that?
Yes.
Yep. So we have a second by Kevin for the amendment to the original motion. Any further discussion?
So they will continue to be paid the stipend.
The amendment is continuing the stipend
February.
through February, mid-February is what you stated.
Yep.
So that's the amended motion. Any other questions, comments, concerns on that motion? So we're going to vote on the amended motion of passing the resolution with the continuation of the transition team stipend through mid-February. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. I'm going to abstain. That motion carries. Brings us to the original motion of striking the entire paragraph and adopting the resolution minus the transition team stipend discussion. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Well, we better. Yeah, we better. So this is the first motion that is different than what we just voted on, but it's striking it and removing the stipend is what it comes down to. We'll roll call, but it's the original motion to adopt the original resolution minus the paragraph which would allow us for the stipend. It does stop the stipend. That was the amended one we already voted on. This motion would stop the stipend with the resolution and the removal of this paragraph.
If you voted yes on the first,
You should vote no on this one.
If you voted yes on that, you'd be in conflict with that.
You
so you'd
would,
wanna
yes.
vote
you'd
no.
be- Yep. So Aaron, we'll start with you on a roll call.
No.
Dean.
No.
I'll abstain. Angela.
No.
Kevin.
No.
Tony.
No.
And Mike. Procedurally, how we do, Marshall? Did we survive?
Your amendment survives and is effective.
Right. Which brings us to approval of the claims. There was some additions. Faye, can you just highlight those that
Yes, it
what
was
Joanne
the
said?
library. I believe it was $106. What had happened is we started the new program right around the 15th, and when she went and pulled it for the first. Oh, sorry about that. When it's for the library, I believe it's $106. When we started the new program, she had started this on the 15th. She did not include the 14th, and actually Chris had put some of the library stuff in there, and so it didn't show up. They were sitting in Casell ready to be paid, but she didn't pull the right dates.
So it's just from the library is the changes.
This is the changes, yes.
Does council have any questions on the claims, both those that are presented in the packet and the amended one that was presented later on with the change?
I've got a couple, page 6.
What do you have, Mike?
The professional fees under fire. What are the professional fees we're paying for?
That is their stipend that they get every quarter. And so this would be for the last quarter of 2023.
And
So
that's the chief and the assistant chief, is
correct.
that correct?
And then the volunteer firemen get a stipend, yeah, that we give to them. But this is what we've been doing this for, I think, 3 years. Around 3 years, we've did this quarterly.
Does that
It's
answer your
according to
question,
their
Mike?
contract.
Yep. Any other questions on the claims, public or council?
And
Come on.
forgive me, that is for 2024.
Okay.
It is 2024,
So the first quarter of 2024.
correct.
Yep. We just pay up front. What do you have, Bonnie?
Well, this piggybacks with that, because throughout this, I'm looking at, okay, like I picked up on page 2, and throughout that I can't quite figure is that, like on page 2, it's called, just a minute, yearly contract.
That's with the Black Hills,
Oh, Prairie Hills
Yeah.
Prairie Hills
and
Transit.
then Black Hills Council, local governments.
Correct,
and
that is
Black
a-
Hills Community.
Yep,
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
going to show up one time and it's not going to show up again
correct,
the rest of the year.
correct.
Okay, so then on that page also we have the South Dakota Municipal League, and it's called
Dues,
Other, and then it's called 2024 Dues.
yep.
And then you go down and you have Municipal Attorney Association, 2024 Dues, and it's called Travel in the third column over. I'm still on page 2.
That's where we budget. I budget for it. Most everybody budgets for it most of them budget. It depends on where we budget for it.
But it isn't travel, it is
Yeah.
the dues to be part of that association.
Correct.
So why do we call it travel? Or why don't we call
Because
it
travel is not just travel, it's travel and dues
Expenses,
as
yeah.
expenses, yeah.
Okay, so then I'm down to 3 and, okay, human resources. I've got 2024 dues, and now, see, like, some of these are only like $25.
Yep. The state, the municipal league is the one that comes up with the dues, what dues. And that is for us to be able to go to meetings and that type of thing.
So is that monthly or is that for the
That's
year?
one, just once a year.
Okay, so then we've got some of these that are, let me just keep going because I can't search this document. Okay, so then we've got Blue Peak dues under
Oh,
utilities.
that's a mistake.
For 2024 for $1,200.
Yeah, she just didn't get the description changed. It's just it's
It's not dues, it's a,
a utility.
yep.
Okay, so then,
The description's what needs to be corrected.
I can have her fix
okay,
it.
so then I get down below and there's, on that page, 2024 dues under travel. Okay, so we answered that. Those are 10s. But then there's some on here that are like, just a minute, let me keep going. I can't search this, so I have to just write down where it was. Okay, there's one for 200 under
Police.
police.
And that would be where they budgeted for it. So it just depends on where they budget for it.
Under other rather than travel.
It's the same thing. It's their dues to the municipal league,
Okay, and then,
or the association, I should say. Police association.
so I thought I saw,
Some under planning, Dave.
okay, so then I see GW Works, professional fees, an annual fee of $2,095. What's GW Works? Or G Works, I guess it is.
G Works, that is the Pub Works. It's software for Public Works.
Okay, so then, okay, see, and what was confusing me was it was coming up as professional fees when that other one came up as professional fees, because that's a $2,000 pop. But that's the same, okay, it's the same amount, so, but it's a different department.
Split evenly.
Yeah, it's split up,
Yeah.
yeah, because Public Works is several
Okay,
several
I see.
departments.
Okay, so that was a reoccurring question, but it got answered. And then airport management is dues under other. Okay, I think the rest of them are all gonna fall under what you answered for me, because I just didn't see where they were coming out, others and travel and utilities and, okay, I'm okay,
Thanks, Bonnie.
thank you.
Any other claim discussions? Keeping in mind, the claims were slightly adjusted once all information was presented, so if anybody's willing to make a motion accordingly, at their will. Is anybody willing to make a motion on the claims?
I would make a motion to approve.
Is that with the newest version?
With the newest
With the one addition, I guess, is the clearest way to state it.
Correct.
We got a first by Aaron with the one addition to the library for the claims.
I'll second it.
We got a second by Tony on the, any further discussion merited on the claims tonight? We are paying bills, so we'll go ahead and roll call. Mike, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Yes. Becca? Yes. Dean?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I don't think we ever reached Preston, did we? I didn't hear the phone go through, so, yeah. Yep, I appreciate it. Bills are paid, brings us to item 10. We adjourn the council meeting at this point in time and meet as a board of adjustment for the following agenda item. Consideration for a variance. Mr. Smith is coming forward. Bernie, what do you have?
Good evening. The item before you is consideration for a variance to the side yard setback to construct a lean-to to the side of the house at 2301 South Baldwin Street. Mr. Austin Murtha has requested this variance to the side yard setback of 5 feet to go to 0. The property is zoned as medium-density residential. The applicant again intends to build a lean-to next to the house and then to the property line. The property is currently described as Hoyle's Addition, Lot 1A, Block 1, parcel ID of 01.65.01.011. Variances. In determining variance requests, the Board of Adjustment must specifically address certain criteria when determining whether to grant or deny the variance request. The criteria stems from statute and city ordinance. The Board of Adjustment must address the specific criteria in their oral and written decision, and the variance criteria are: A, special circumstances or conditions exist, such as exceptional narrowness, topography, or relaxation of the zoning ordinance provides a quantifiable benefit to the city and the surrounding neighborhood. B, strict application of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of any reasonable use of this land or create a hardship. Mere loss of value does not justify the givens of a variance. There must be deprivation or beneficial use of the land. C, the variance provides the maximum adjusted necessary for the reasonable use of the land. And D, by granting the variance, it is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood, detrimental to the public welfare, or in conflict with the comprehensive plan. The applicant has requested this variance to allow for the lean-to be built on the side of the house while avoiding a tree stump lost during the fire. Title 180504, medium-density residential zoning setbacks do require a 5-foot side setback. Staff has failed to see the hardship for this variance. A total of 19 landowner forms went out, 14 were returned, 12 approvals, 2 denied, stated construction started before the letter, concerns for fire hazard, and concerns that the structure will be used for a food truck operated out of the alley. Signage was placed on the property November 6, 2023 for the required 21 days. The little point of clarification, the building permit was issued by the building inspector in my department on the 15th of August. She also requested a site plan. The site plan was given or completed by baseline surveying, and when it came back, it showed that this would require a variance by where they wanted to place it, and not where initially the homeowner thought the land might be, which would have been inside of or on the setback required. So that's the reason we're here they're requesting the variance, because of where the site plan was. Now, this was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
According to the report, due to lack of the hardship belief is basically what they're
That's correct. They could they could build the structure within the required setback, but that would require them to make it smaller.
Any questions from the Board of Adjustments for Mr. Smith at this point in time? Do you know the property owner is present? You want to come up and speak? Austin, we get to swear you in as the Board of Adjustments, so Mr. Marshall will.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Austin Murtha. Is it on?
Go ahead, Austin.
I just want to state that everything you said was correct. I was going off of my fence line that, like you said, it's on the Hoyle property. It's been there for many, many, many years. You should so I thought I was good with 2 feet from my fence, just shy of 2 feet anyway. So I can fit a lawnmower back there or take care of, I've always gone off my fence. So I thought I had plenty of room. Like I said, I did the building permit. And then when I called to get my holes dug approved, that's when I found out I had to go into all this other process. Now the food truck out in my alley, it's for storage. I have 2 basement windows there. If I move it back 2 feet, it almost makes it useless over there. It only gives me like 3 feet worth of storage.
So it's just for covered storage?
Yeah, that's all it is,
Covering
yep.
for your storage, okay.
And there's a picture of it down a little further in the plans.
Yeah, there should be a photograph or a picture of
A little
that.
further
in
down.
Yeah, a little bit further. There it is. That's pretty much what it is.
Open on both sides. Yeah. Deb, could you go further down to show the placement on the fence? So I'm looking for clarity when you said you can get your mower through there,
See,
Austin. Yeah.
Yes. See, there's my poles and the chain link fence. There's enough room in there for my mower to go all the way back to my gated fence for the backyard to take care of it.
The gate's closer to the structure.
House,
Yeah.
to my house,
Yep.
yes. And both those fences on the left, the wood one and the chain link, are both mine.
Any other questions from the Board of Adjustments for clarity?
Dave, was one of the returned letters from the adjacent neighbor right alongside the post that we're showing her?
I'm sorry, Mr. Forrester, I don't have that in front of me, and I should have looked, and I don't know that that's the case. I don't know what the neighbor next door said on that. I just know that there was more for it than there was against it.
How high of a structure is this?
Just under 10 foot total to the opening. I guess the peak of the eaves would maybe be 11 and a half, wherever it falls, 11 and a half, 12.
And so you're looking to
Back
put
the
it
designs. Well, go ahead.
right
ma'am.
on the property line, because the request is for a 0 setback?
Well, that's
So-
where that's where it ended up at. But assuming when I designed it and had Menards design it for me, I was off of the fence by ample. I assumed ample room.
So your fences are on the neighbor's property?
They are, in fact, yes.
Oh.
So were the forts, yes, way grandfathered in.
I had a garage once on the neighbor's property.
They pay tax for you?
No, I gotta pay.
The only thing I will add, if the Board of Adjustment does provide the variance to the 0 setback, that they would not be able to close in the front or the back side of that because the gas meter is inside on that side, right up against the house. So that would need to be accessible by MD or by the gas company.
And after you did mention that to me, I did call and see if I could have it moved, and with some construction, I could have it moved out to the front. So at a later date, I might possibly be able to do that.
So the only enclosure, Mr. Murtha, will be where on the south side, right? Where
Correct.
the
Correct. The 3
beams
poles
and
will be the
everything.
wall,
Okay.
and then the ceiling, the roof will be from the poles to the house.
Okay.
And it would be pretty much a walkthrough. I just want a place because I can't build my garage because the yellow garage on that south side is 16 inches taller ground level than anything else. And all the water that comes down Celia Street and the alley comes through my garage that used to be there. I have pictures of 4 foot or 4 inches worth of water coming in my big garage door, out my other garage door, running straight to my house. I don't feel safe building anything there until I can do a lot of groundwork to cure that problem. That's been happening for 25 plus years.
I know it was asked how tall it is. Did anyone ask how wide? So what's the distance from your house to that property line? How wide is it?
Oh,
like, I'm just wondering-
it's been a while, and it's on
I've got the plans up here.
Yep. There
And-
it is.
And so you can't make it any narrower to not be right on that property line?
Well,
mean, I
with
guess
this,
doing
with the
things-
big pine tree I took down, there's a stump, and I was told probably shouldn't put the poles in that hole. So it had to be either on this side or that side of where my big pine tree stump was at one point in time. That I had to cut down because of the fire, and the other 4 trees in the back, which I have no protection for that house, that side of the house. I have no shade for the summertime sun. I'm just trying to build something to put my barbecue grill in and my lawnmower under so it's not getting snowed on, you know, just yard items. Storage, yeah, pretty much.
Well, for me, I think that there's two determining factors. One, the fact that out of 14 or 19 forms went out, you had 12 approvals. And I think for me personally, you know, as the property owner, you should be allowed to design and build structures that will improve your home, improve your quality of living. So I support granting this variance. With that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance for Mr. Murtha on 2301 South Baldwin.
We have first by Becca to approve the variance. Mike, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
I have concerns about fire in the future, and at some point in time, it will be enclosed, at least to the rear. If the fence goes away, it'll be an enclosed. Well, once the structure's there, we got no control over it.
Well, I think he said that it's only on the south side that he's going to build the wall. So it has to be accessible for the gas company.
Correct.
And we've approved other variances. One was up on like Cooper Loop, where it was a 0 setback for a carport. So we've done similar things. I think that's when the fire department came in and told us that they didn't believe that there would be a hazard on that. So in my mind, this is very similar.
Dave, did the fire department?
The fire department had
No problem.
no problem with it. Just for future, if it does become an enclosed structure, then by ordinance, it has to have a hard surface inside. The windows would have to be removed because there are penetrations. There's another window there. So that's just by building code. As long as we maintain 2 open sides, then like as he wants it right now.
Oh, Mr. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I add that to my motion, please, that it maintains 2 open sides?
As presented, basically.
Yes, as presented
Yeah.
in the plans.
There's clarity on the first motion by Councilor Zerbst. The variance is considered for approval by the way it's presented, I guess, for
Yes,
clarity.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess.
Is there a,
For me, sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. I really wish I knew what the neighbor right next door thought about it. I know the only time I've gone with a 0 setback variance was when there was no neighboring, I think it was neighboring city property. And so it's tough for me without knowing what that neighbor thinks for a 0 setback. You know, if you could make it a little smaller, you know, and go in even a foot or something, I think it just causes problems when you're right on a property line. I don't know, that's a little, it's tough for me.
And at the same time, I totally understand where you're coming from, but my fence is almost 2 feet on the other side of the wall. She's not using any of that property anyway. You know, so that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out here.
Which fence is on the property line?
But the wooden one and the chain link are both my fences.
Yeah, but which one? Isn't there?
Neither one.
Neither one.
They're almost
They're
2
on the
foot
neighbors.
on the wrong side of it.
So the property line's the base of the
Base of
3
those
posts.
Yep.
That's the actual,
That's the
after
actual
the site,
property
after
line,
the
yeah.
site survey.
Being built on the property line.
Correct. With the fence grandfathered in with the neighbors. Any further discussion from the council? We do have a first on the floor. Is there a second or further discussion?
I hate to set the precedents.
I think we have.
Certainly over the years, there's been multiple times either direction on what we've decided for variances.
Before I make a motion, or don't, my question, what does the other side of the property look like as far as access? Like
It has
the opposite
a
side of the house.
3-foot walkway to a back gate that is right on my neighbor's property lines, right, or their fence is right there. There, one more down, huh? Okay, nope, keep going down, one more.
The other way.
No, oh, you got it. The other way?
Yeah.
Or you want the aerial?
Keep going.
Oh, there.
You can see in that photograph, the garage is still there, but that's no longer there.
Yes. Correct.
On the south
The bl-
side.
the
bottom
blue
side.
line.
Down.
Yep.
And on the other plan, or the other drawing you had, it actually shows it a little bit better. No.
Keep going. The actual, there you go.
Oh, there was another photo up there, I thought.
The baseline one.
Yep.
Did that answer your question, Dean, that you had?
Yeah, the
Site plan, the baseline.
Look at the picture that they're looking for, but
You're talking the site.
right there.
Right
There
that
it
one.
is.
yes, there's,
So the north side of the property has a power line?
Correct.
That's overhead, right?
Correct.
I would second Becca's motion.
So we got a second by Mr. Sigmund. Any further discussion from council? I have a first and a second on the floor to approve the variance request. How about anybody else want to get sworn in up here at the? Any other comments, questions, concerns for the Board of Adjustments on this consideration? None being heard, we will call the question, and for clarity on the minutes, we will roll call, and I'll start with myself. I am yes. Becca?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Aaron?
Abstain.
Angela?
No.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tony?
No.
And Mike?
No.
So we've 4 in favor,
Mm-hmm.
3 no, and 1 abstention. So I believe the request is granted procedurally.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. May
Request
I
is-
ask for the purposes of preparing findings and conclusions, the grounds on which the variance is granted is that denial would deprive the owner of all reasonable use of his property, or exceptional circumstances, or both.
Yes.
Both.
We will adjourn the board.
Thank you.
We'll adjourn the Board of Adjustments and resume the council meeting. Thanks, Austin. Thanks,
Excellent,
Dave.
thank you.
Brings us to item 11, which is reports, which is a whole slew of resolutions. Mr. Marshall's report on the history there. And as we move through the resolutions, I think it's pertinent to ensure that each one has their own action and clarity within direction and signatory authority granted by this council. So please remember that as we move forward.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. If you could go back to Resolution 2. Resolution 24-02 authorizes the signature of lease and rental agreements not relating to the rally. The designated staff person must bring the request before the city council and gain city council approval. So the signature is purely an administrative function and doesn't exercise any discretion whatsoever.
Should we look at the actual resolution so we can see where the blank is to be filled in?
Certainly.
Thank you.
A little more, please. Yes, that's all of it.
Yes.
It might be beneficial to entertain each of the resolutions as they're presented. But again, that's certainly a matter of council's discretion, whether they want to do them as presented or at the end.
Are there any questions or comments from council for item number 12.1? I'm sorry, 11.1.
First question is why are the resolutions not linear? Why do we jump from 3 to 5? There's no 4.
They're going to be renumbered.
Yeah, we talked about that this morning, and you mentioned that we were going to.
Yeah.
So we can clarify, Kevin, we can count them as 1, 2, 3, 4, even when they're.
5 and 6 was removed
Right.
last meeting.
So number 2 is actually number 1.
No, number 1 is the salary and
Yep,
wage.
the one we already had.
2 is
Yep.
correct. 2, 3, 4 is fine.
Yep. And then, correct, yep, with the removal of the sponsorship discussion we had last time. So I think in addition to that discussion, I think it's, I'm sure Mr. Marshall presented it too, but it's important to have the ability for someone from the transition team or somebody from, that the council gives authority to sign these documents as we move forward through the day and through the weeks and years of 2024. In this particular resolution, it's for rally or non-rally lease and rental agreements. Vast majority of those take place in the community center and within the properties that Rod is involved with there. So that's why he stated there. But I think it makes sense for the council to at least have the discussion of if there should be another name put in that blank. Historically, with a city manager sitting in the office, that would be the city manager, is where that comes from.
I believe that 2, 3, and 4 would both fall under the Public Works Director, would be the easy name to put in those.
For discussion purposes, is that a motion, Kevin, or for discussion purposes?
Starting with discussion purposes.
Yep. The discussion is to have Rick Bush as Director of Public Works as the other authority given by the council to sign pertinent documents that are included in Resolution 2, 3, and 4, as Mr. Forster stated.
Yeah, two includes many items. Construction easements are right up his alley, and the events and equipment is also primarily under Public Works and Parks. So, unless there's any compelling reason, I would make a motion for Resolution 2024-2, 3, and 4 to include Rick Bush's name.
Can we do them individually, Kevin, just because they're each resolutions? So let's start with 2. If that.
I second that for number 2.
So we have a first by Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, with the motion to authorize Resolution 2024-02 with the addition of the Director of Public Works, Rick Bush. Aaron seconded that motion.
Correct.
Any further discussion from the council? Public input. All those in favor of the motion for Resolution 2024-02, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. 2024-03 is the signing of the easements. Kevin hit on a lot of that. Is there any discussion from council or from the public? You want to make another motion, Kevin?
I'd make the same motion for Rick Bush to be included on Resolution 2024-03.
First by Councilor Forster.
Second.
We have a second by Aaron. Any further discussion, council or public?
Wouldn't that probably be maybe better under planning and zoning?
With the multiple hats, Mike, it is a viable question for sure. I think as a transition team member, Rick also brings a lot to the table with the functioning of the city day in and day out for sure. As a point of discussion.
I don't disagree.
Yep. Any further discussion? Council or community? We have a first and a second on the floor for Resolution 2024-03 with the addition of Rick Bush for authorizing signature. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. Next item is Resolution 2024-04. This is for city events and special requests. Discussion's been had already. That makes sense to have Rick there. Any further discussion on that?
I would make the motion that Rick Bush's name be added to Resolution 2024-4.
First by Kevin with Rick's name as an addition.
Second.
A second by Aaron. Further discussion? Rick, you got your pen ready?
I'm glad with the new duties assigned that he didn't lose his stipend.
I agree with that.
Or his pen.
Or his pen.
All those in favor of the motion for 2024-04 with the addition of Rick Bush, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. 05 is for municipal equipment and requests for lease and things like that. It too has an opportunity for addition. Any discussion on that?
For the sake of discussion, it seems like the finance office would be the best location for, I'm getting confused on our deal, 05 and 06. Although maybe there's a checks and balances portion of signing the write-offs out of the finance office. Is that Is that a valid statement?
So you're talking 07, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I was lumping those together.
But specifically '05 though, does that make sense then? From the finance director to be that person? Okay.
Council's will, but I think it's sensible.
I wasn't sure if there was another management team that would do it, but it makes sense to me too.
Yeah, the write-offs, yeah. I think the write-offs maybe should be
Out of the finance office, yeah.
I mean, this one here, I mean, there's really no money involved here.
Well, future expenditures are appropriated by the council. I mean, the checks and balances inherent through the.
Paying the bills and
Right.
managing them anyway, so.
So I'd make a motion then for 2024-05 to approve that with the addition of the person be the finance director.
So we have a first by Aaron with the addition of the finance officer to the resolution.
Second that.
We have a second by Tony.
Can we clarify if that is, because this is a resolution lasting all year, is that Adam or that Fay?
That was kind of the reason I used the
finance
position,
officer.
Whoever's in the seat.
because then it depends on who's in the role.
Right. Makes sense.
Whoever's in that seated position.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a first and a second on the floor. Any last discussion? All those in favor of the motion for resolution 2024-05 with the addition of the finance officer to the resolution in the blank, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. Brings us to 06. This is contracts for supplies, services, and employee contracts. Also, within the allocated appropriated budget passed by council, that's where these authorities truly come from.
And so part of that earlier discussion on 05, then we were talking about 06. It seemed like we didn't necessarily want to put all that on the finance director, right? So have some checks and balances there a little bit.
Correct, yep.
But it makes sense to have one person or one position that's accountable to that for this year. Because typically it's the city manager, correct?
Correct.
It's one person.
Correct. Yep. That's what the blank was.
And again, once we do have a chief executive, city manager, then would we have to redo all these resolutions to give that person the authorization? Okay.
Yes.
Yep, yep.
So how about then from Lisa then as a possible option for this resolution?
Is that a motion?
Well, it's a discussion first, because I'm just, I don't want to,
Yeah.
it makes,
I would second that if that was a motion.
well,
But
if that makes sense.
Again, council gets to decide that, and like we've previously mentioned, is that it merely is a function of the city manager, yet without a city manager, we have to make sure we're clear on where those authorities lie until that is.
Okay, it's a motion then.
Okay.
versus discussion.
So we have a first by Aaron with the addition of Lisa Katzenstein,
I'd second it.
and a second by Tony. Any last discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That resolution passes. Brings us to 07, which is the write-offs and the insufficient funds, fines and things like that. Should not be used, what you just said, Faye. Shouldn't be the finance. It should be outside the finance office is what you feel comfortable, as what you feel your input is.
How did we jump to 7 when we were dropping one? Isn't 7 6?
Yeah, she replaced those before we got these, right? So these are correct.
Yes, these are
Yep.
correct.
So these numbers.
Correctly numbered.
Yep.
The sign off.
5 and 6 used to be the rallying events and the agreement, sponsorship agreements.
Correct.
They went away, so now 5 and 6 is these two, and then 7.
Would it make sense for this to be Mr. Marshall?
The discussion point is, does this make sense to come out of Mr. Marshall's office for authority?
With signing authority, does that hamstring us anyway if this is, if there's ever any legal ramifications? If we have to defend this? Does that exclude him?
The office of city attorney would be charged with the duty of enforcing and collecting those, so it would seem to follow that it would fall within the purview of that office to have the signing authority to write them off. So there would be a consistency.
But to Kevin's question, would that set us up for failure under the potential litigation if you were the signing authority?
I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on 2024-07?
I would make a motion to have I'll allow for more discussion before I make a motion.
Just for my clarity, is that 07 or 06?
That's 07 we're talking, yep. Any further discussion or any motion for Resolution 2024-07? Not yet.
It was like a half. I would complete that half motion and make a full motion to have Mr. Marshall be the signing authority on -7.
We have a first by Dean on Resolution -07 to add Mr. Marshall to the blank.
Second.
We have a second by Angela. Any further discussion? Public or council? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed to no. That motion carries unanimously. Final resolution for the night is 2024-08. This is a resolution for the compensation for the election board. This does not require authority. It's just something that we need to do when we pay these people as we have an upcoming election. Go ahead, Faye.
Just one thing I want to mention to you is that I did leave that at $50 for the counting of the ballots. If it turns out to be a 4 or 5 hour ordeal, I would recommend that Adam adjusts that and pay them more for that. This I'm looking at more like a couple hours. So this is how it was 2 years ago, and then we did adjust it because they did work till 11 o'clock. So.
Which would be another action. That'd be another resolution.
You could have another action, correct.
Seems like it'd be a good idea to make an adjustment to that right now. I mean, what do we pay for a planning meeting?
Yeah.
50.
50. I mean, that's a noble position that the planning people are working in, but our election workers they're working long and hard. It seems like $18 and $21 an hour for the ward person and the superintendent, and $75 for the counting board would be a better.
And that would be fine with me. Like I said, I know I was looking at $50 for 2 hours, so $25 each hour is what I had. That was what originally came about. But like I said, I know we did give them more because it was such a long ordeal.
Was that discussion, Kevin, or was that a motion?
I would make a motion that we adjust Resolution 2024-08 to reflect $18 an hour for the ward person, $21 an hour for the superintendent, and $75 per person for the counting board.
We have first by Kevin with resolution adjustments.
Second.
We have a second by Aaron. Any further discussion? Public or council? None being heard. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries unanimously and that resolution passes with the changes.
Mayor, may I say one other thing?
Yep.
For the first three on, for Rick, should I just use Public Works for that also, like we're using Finance Officer? Or do you want names, or do you want, did you want that as a name?
I think the way we did the motion and the action, we better just put the name in.
Name, okay.
Yep, and if we have to make something different later.
Okay.
Just to stay consistent with what was done.
Not that Rick's leaving or anything.
Yeah, right, after all these signings. That brings the resolutions to a close on 11.1, which leaves only item 12, which is executive session, with no anticipated action on the backside of executive session. Is there a motion to go into exec?
So moved.
We have first by Dean, we have a second by Becca. Bernie, you have a question? Yes. What's your question?
Bernie, you, Sarah. On the, when we were talking about the transition team, I'm wondering, there's a 7-member paid transition team. Why do we only hear reports from 2 of the team? What exempts the other 5 from reporting to the public about what they are doing as part of the transition team?
So, wrong spot in the meeting, but for clarity purposes, the transition team member that most fits the day in and day out activities of that section is how they come forward. Nothing at all exempts. In fact, we try to make sure that equal voices are heard as we talk about different portions of the city and things like that with reports from, department heads and things like that. But specifically when Lisa speaks to the HR side of things, that's why that's consistency yet. But basically in the bailiwick of the person on the transition team is where that comes from. There's no banning of discussions for certain things. And if we need certain clarities, I can sure work with you and get those.
So, of the teams, they each have an area that they are responsible for?
The structure that was adopted after Mr. Ainsley left was the different departments were split up of the city manager's duties, or it was split up amongst the department heads. So yes, they each have their own sections.
Okay, then I want to bring up, what is the stipend that they receive?
832, is that correct? Yeah.
It's okay. $861. Wow. Okay. And do they receive that every pay period?
Every pay period, yep.
In some months, there are 3 pay periods that they.
Usually throughout the year, there's 2 months that are cycled when you pay biweekly.
Okay. And what is your stipend?
The same.
It is the same?
Yep.
Okay. So in January, it goes up to $861. But is that per pay period? So it's over $1,600 extra a month.
Yep. And how that was originally created and what was brought forward by the council was the city manager's salary divided up is where that number came from.
So with 2024 coming up, or we're in now, what would have been the city manager's salary for 2024? 160?
I think Bernie's question is more specific to what Mr. Ainsley was receiving and how the calculations were created. 125,000 with maybe a percentage or so off with the increase. But going off of memory, not a solid
number. About 130 is what Lisa said.
So then, that salary was divided 7 ways for this, after he left.
Correct. It was divided up when the transition team would, I'd have to go back and look at the minutes and see.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, my recollection is that Mr. Ainsley's salary was divided 6 ways, but subsequently in June, the stipend payable to you was added at the same amount and not readjusted to make it 1/7 of Mr. Ainsley's pay.
So 2 different actions that occurred both in April and then in June would be ballpark.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
There was action in June. Council voted on the June movement.
I cannot recall that off the top of my head, but I recall that was the time at which a stipend was extended to the mayor.
Who suggested that?
I think that was me, since he was part of the transition team, so that he would get the same as everybody else.
Okay.
And then we added that on in June.
Just, thank you very much.
So we got a first and a second on the floor for executive session. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. 8:56. We'll start in about 4 minutes.